So in this video we'll be looking at pivot tables. So pivot tables, they are a great way to extract significant data from large data sets. For this one, we'll be working in the pivot table sheet, and if you look at our data, we have around 100 or so. We have 99 entries. So pivot tables really help us to extract the data that we need from a large data set. It also helps us to create reports. It also helps us to group, filter, sort, and so on and so forth. So what you are going to do, we are going to add our pivot table here in our data set. We are going to click on Control A to highlight our data. Then in our insert table, we are going to click on pivot table. Then it has selected the area that it's going to add the pivot table to. What I would want you to check is here, existing worksheet, because we want our pivot table to be in our existing worksheet. Then you are going to select a location where we would want our pivot table. So I would want it, say, here. Then I'm going to click on OK. So what it has done, it has created our pivot table, and it has added two new tabs. We have the Analyze and we have the Design here. Then it has also created a pivot table field here, where we have specific fields, and this field, one thing you notice, they are the same column headers we have in our table. So it's always remember to add your column headers properly. Then it has added, then we have fields here. We have 4 fields here. We have our filters, column, rows, and values. So what we are going to do, I want to show you how we can create, say, a table or our first pivot table. So let's say I want to know the sales. If I check this sales box here, and then what happens is, in the Excel automatically places our sales in our values, because sales are in numeric value, and Excel automatically knows that you want to give the sum for the sales. So what it has done, if you checked on this sales button here, it automatically places it in this field of values and gives you the total for this data that we have. But here we have product ID. Say we wanted to know the sales. We wanted to know the sales for each product ID. And we can see here we have D104, A101, D104, D104, C103. So if you wanted to know the sales for each or the specific product ID, and you can see here they have been repeated several times. So what Excel will do, or what pivot table does, it adds up, or it combines those product IDs, then it adds or create a total for each product ID. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to click on product ID. So what it has done, it has automatically added it to our rows, to our row field. Then it has combined them. We can see now the totals for A101. The total sales for A101 was 10,470, B102 18,901, and it also gives us the grand total for all the product IDs. So the other thing we can do is we can modify Excel pivot tables. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove these areas here by just clicking on them, then dragging them out and dragging them out. So when we checked on sales, what Excel did, it automatically placed the sales in our values field. This is because Excel automatically, it can tell that the sales are numerical values, and it automatically gives us the total. So what if we added, I'm just going to play around with this. So what if we added say the product ID? What if we added the product ID into our sales field? Let's see what happens. So Excel has given us the count for our product ID and given us the total of 99 here. So what it has done, since product ID is a text value, you can't sum up a text value. So what it has done, it has given us only the count. What if we wanted to know the total amount of each product ID? So what we can do, we can select this product ID and bring it to our rows. So what it has done, it has given us for each individual product ID, it has given us the count. So for A101, it is telling us there are 21 A101s, there are 30 B102s, and there are 24 C103, and so on and so forth. It has also given us the grand total for the count of the product IDs. So I want to try out something else. So I'm just going to remove this count, and so just click on it and then remove it. I want to bring back our sales in our values, so it goes back to giving us the totals. What it has done, it has given us the totals for each product ID, but I would want to show you how to do formatting when you're dealing with pivot tables. For now, we know that you are working with sales, and sales have when you look at our table here, it has formatting. So what we can do, we can add a currency formatting to our sales. So go back to this field, left click on this drop down arrow, left click, then click on value field settings. Then here, what we are going to do, we are going to give number format. Then we are going to click on currency. We can decide to have it in Kenya shillings, or you can decide to have it in any other currency that you'd want. So I might decide, let's just stick with the Kenyan's currency. Then you are going to click on OK, then click on OK again. So as you can see now, we have formatting to our data, and now we can tell for product ID A101 we have a total of 10,470. So that's how you create or you give formatting to data inside your pivot tables. We can, for now, whatever Excel did is give us sum, but we are not limited to only sum. You can even have any other, say count, you can have averages. I'm going to show you how to do that. Go back to your values field, right click on it, click on value field settings, and here we can decide to even have, say, the averages. Then we are going to click on OK. Then we've automatically included the average of sales. So we can tell for A101, for product ID A101, the average sales was 4,498, and for D102, D104 is 445.71, and it has also given us the total average. Okay, so I'm just going to hit Ctrl Z just to go back to our sum. Then the other thing that I would want us to include, say we want to know the units, how many units were actually sold for each product ID. And you can tell for D104 here in the West region, they sold 5. What if now we wanted to see how many units for each product, for each specific product ID were actually sold? So we can come back to our pivot table field, add our units to our values field. Then it gives us the totals. Here we have the totals for product A101 is 211, and the sum of the sales was 10,470. For product B102 is 270, and the total sales were 18,901, and so on and so forth. What if we didn't want Excel to give us the sum? What if we wanted, say, the percentage of the total. We want to know what percentage of product A101 did we actually sell. So what we can do, we can go back to this field here, then click on units. Then after clicking on units, you add you left click, then click on value field setting. Then we are going to show value S. Now then we are going to show a percentage of grand total. Then we are going to click on OK. So what it does, it has given us the percentage of grand total. So we can tell for product A101 it was 21.66% of the grand total. Okay. So another thing we can do, we can even, for now, as you can, from this I can get that we have our product A101 at the top. So that tells me Excel has sorted our data in alphabetical way, because we have our base A, B, C, D. But giving or telling from what I can see in our percentage of units sold, we have other products which have a higher percentage. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sort this data here. So I'm going to highlight the sum of sales, then I'm going to go to my data. Then what I'm going to do is sort it. So I'm going to highlight this, then sort it from largest to smallest, and now we have our data sorted from largest to smallest. So we can tell our product ID B102 is the highest with 27.72% and has a sum of 18,901. So that is, ways of how you can play around with pivot tables. You can pull data from, as you can tell, we had entries of about 99, and we can quickly summarize that data in terms of product IDs. We can know their sum, we can know their averages, we can give percentages of their totals, and so on and so forth. So the other thing we can look at is grouping and filtering data. So I'm going to use, so for this one I'm going to remove the sum of units. Then I'm going to add, say we wanted to see the date of we wanted a date to see when each product ID was sold. So I'm going to add the date, I'm going to check it, and what it has done, it has given us the date for each specific product ID. But I'm going to show you how you can group this data, because what we have now, we have each date for each sale. So I'm going to click on the row labels, then I'm going to right click, then I want to group this data. Then here I'm going to select on months, then I'm going to click on OK. So what I can see, we have January, February, March for each product ID, but since we have many months compared to the product ID, so I'm going to interchange these rows and columns. So I'm going to bring my product ID into my column panel, to see how, this one looks much better. This is because we had more months than what we have for our product IDs, so you can interchange that. So for here, for now, we can see we have for January, for product B102, we had a total sales of 1,142, and it gives us the grand total for each month. So the other thing we can do, we can even decide to group this data according to quarters. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click on month, then I'm going to right click here, then go to group. We can even view it as, say, quarters we want to see. Then I'm going to deselect these months, we can have them as quarters. Then okay, so we can see here our first quarter is 4,908 for for our product ID, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. We have the grand total for each product ID, and we have grand total for each quarter. So that's a good way to look at it. Then the other thing maybe we can look at, so I'm going to return. So I'm going to return back to our month, then you can hit OK. Then say we wanted to filter. The other thing I want to show you is filtering. We can filter, so we can deselect all and say we want for only January, March, and say June. So we hit OK. Then pivot tables automatically gives you a filter. Okay, automatically filters those months, and you can see now the data for each specific month. So you can go back and remove clear filter from date value. Another neat feature of pivot tables is what we refer as to drilling down. So drilling down, what basically happens is we can tell. So if I wanted to know for this specific month of January, we can see the totals for our product B102 is 1142. So if we wanted to know what really made up these totals for 1142 in the month of January, so what we can do, we can come in here and double click. So once you double click, what it does, Excel provides a detailed information for the specific sums that you've selected, or for the specific cell that you've corrected. So if we double click here, so Excel automatically creates another sheet and calls it sheet 1. Then it gives us, so I'm gonna double click here so that we can readjust. So we can see it automatically gives you a more detailed, or it gives you more detailed information pertaining to that specific cell that you clicked. And here we can see it tells us for product ID B102 in the north and south region, the sales were 907 and 235. If we highlight this and go to our status bar, we can see the sum is 1142. When we go back to our Excel, or we go back to our sheet, to our pivot table, we can see for January it was 1142. So what it tells us, in the month of January there were two sales, in both in date 23rd and date 14, and the totals was 1142. So that's a pretty neat feature, because it gives you a summary of whatever has happened within a specific day or a specific month. So the final thing that I would want to look at is what we call a pivot chart. Okay, so I'm going to create a pivot chart from our pivot table. So the pivot chart are usually located in the analyze tab in your pivot table tools. Then you click on pivot chart. So for this example, I'm going to use just a basic clustered column. So I'm going to hit on OK. There you have it. So what you can see from this, so I'm just going to reduce a little bit so we can see. Then I want it to fit. Let's see how we are going to fit. So for the sake of this video, allow me to have my chart here on top of my table so that you can view it better. So one thing I want to talk about our a pivot chart and a pivot table is, when you're using, unlike other charts, when you're using a pivot table, a pivot chart, it's dynamic. Say you make any changes to this chart, it automatically has those changes on your pivot table. So always be careful. So say we decided to filter this and we decided to have only product A101 and A102. It will not only change in our chart, but it will also change in our table. So when I hit OK, see it automatically changes from or it automatically filters to B102 and B101, and it also has the same filters added to our table. Okay, so I'm going to clear those filters, and then we have our data back. Then I would want to filter this, or I would want to group this to quarters, then remove months. Now you can see what we have now is our data. So I'm going to return this here. We can see now our data as Q1, Q2, Q3, quarter and Q4. The other thing we can do, we can decide, say we remove our dates and we add our units. So we can try, not necessarily our units, but say we wanted to add our region and we wanted to know what IDs or what products were sold in a specific region. So I can just say we remove this date column here by just dragging it, and then bring our product ID here. Then we can add our region in our legend. So here we can tell our region has been added, and then we can see that for product B102, the product B102, the highest sales were in the East region, and then followed by the North region, followed by the South, and followed by the West. So I'm just playing around with this to show you different ways of how you can do it. As I said, you can also add filters to this chart. Say we wanted to see only C and D104, then you click on OK, and there it has added those filters. And as I said, it also adds those filter to it also adds that filter to your table. So this has been quite a long video, but I'm going to stop there for our pivot charts and pivot tables, and I hope you guys have understood. Just play around with these fields, put place any field that you would want, and see the kind of data that it gives you.